Hey, what's going on, everybody? So, you've probably heard a little bit about glyphosate in the news recently because Trump decided to sign an executive order so that we can continue to spray this shit chemical all over our food and be poisoned and get cancer and have all kinds of terrible gut diseases and gut discomfort instead of finding alternatives. So, in this video, I'm going to go over what glyphosate is, I'm going to go over where it comes from, I'm going to tell you which foods it gets into, and I'm going to tell you how it damages your health. So let's get right into it. So first of all, glyphosate is an organic acid, and it's derived from the amino acid known as glycine. Now our bodies use this, and yes, it's called an organic acid, but that doesn't mean it's healthy. As I'll show you, it actually disrupts a number of processes in the body and causes lots of inflammation to the tissue. So why do we use glyphosate? Well, it's because it's really good at killing weeds and other plants that we just don't want in certain areas. Not even just in agriculture, but residentially and within cities and towns as well. And it does this by disrupting the plant's enzymes. So it actually goes into the plant, and this thing is designed to disrupt internal processes, just like it does in human beings. They tell us that it doesn't, but it absolutely fucking does. And the more important thing about glyphosate that you need to know is that it is specifically formulated to be absorbed by the plant and kill it from within. So it's not just being sprayed on the surface. It doesn't just get like a superficial absorption into the plant and then kill it by disrupting processes at the surface level or the skin level of the plant. No, it goes deep within the plant. So when you're eating plants that have absorbed this chemical, you're getting a full dose of this shit. But where does it come from? Well, it was primarily manufactured by the Monsanto Corporation prior to 2000. I'm pretty sure they're the ones that developed it. But then their patent expired in 2000 and China began making it more and more. And nowadays, they make like 90% of this shit and they send it over here because for some reason, we've just handed China the keys to the kingdom when it comes to manufacturing, and we've become reliant on them for everything. Which is why recently, this year, Trump signed an executive order to require glyphosate to be made in the United States once again, so that we can get most of our supply of this fucking bullshit from manufacturers here in the United States. And so how do you know when glyphosate is being used? Well, it is the main ingredient in Roundup, and it is used for agricultural purposes, but it's also used by regular people like you and I for residential applications such as driveways, lawns, backyards, that kind of thing. You may have seen your neighbor using this weed killer to make their property look better. And it's also used by cities, in medians and along the sides of roadways. So aside from just consuming this stuff on a regular basis, if you're not properly sourcing your food and really looking at where it comes from, you're also likely getting this from your environment. But that's probably in a much smaller quantity. I mean, let's be honest, you might breathe in a little bit of a vapor or something if it's being applied. But the main problem is the agriculture, because you're fucking eating this shit that is designed to be absorbed by plants. And when it comes to Roundup specifically, I thought I'd include this, because glyphosate's not the only problem when it comes to this weed killer. This weed killer is also pumped with inorganic phosphates. These come from mines. They actually go out to mines. They get this form of phosphate that is not really good for you because, yes, your body uses phosphate. It actually can be found in lots of fruits and vegetables. But when you get it in this kind of a quantity, it causes all kinds of problems in the body. The kinds of quantities that they use to make weed killers like Roundup that get absorbed into plants. And some of the things that inorganic phosphate can lead to on its own includes things like stressing out your kidneys, your heart, your blood vessels. It can actually lead to bone weakness, and it can cause hypertension, which is how you can get a nice big brain aneurysm and die in your fucking sleep. Pretty fucking dandy, right? Now let's talk about which foods it gets into. I included this map here. As you can see, it is sprayed all over the fucking place. There's voids here and there, but there's really no agriculture in those areas. Anywhere where you see farmland, this is very likely being used, and it is FDA approved. Which, if you ask me, is some fucking bullshit at this point. We've been using it for decades. There is research, there are studies out there that say that this stuff is fucking terrible for you, and we'll get into that in a minute, but you should know exactly what this is getting into. It's getting into soybeans, it's getting into corn, it's getting into cotton. So potentially some of the clothing that you wear, you think, oh wow, it's cotton. That's good for me. We're getting away from the synthetic stuff. It's not next to my skin all day. Well, potentially that cotton has absorbed some glyphosate, some inorganic phosphates and whatnot. Maybe not the worst exposure, especially when it compares to eating shit that is filled with this stuff. But it is another source of exposure, and all of these things add up, of course. But you should know that it also gets into things like sugar beets and canola. So if you think about canola oil, which is like an extract, it's like a concentrate almost derived from canola. Imagine how much fucking inorganic phosphates and glyphosate you are consuming with something like canola oil, on top of that just being a nasty seed oil to begin with, that is highly processed. And sure, maybe that stuff is removed in the process of, processing canola oil. But who really knows, honestly? I mean, the process of creating those seed oils is absolutely fucking disgusting. If you don't know about that, there's a point in the process where the stuff is so smelly and toxic and intolerable to the senses that you will gag, you might throw up if you smell it, and then they have to condition it from there to get it into an edible form. Most seed oils actually used to be used as farm equipment lubricant. So they'd put it on their tractors and stuff, and then at some point somebody decided that it would be good to put in food. But the list doesn't even stop there. It also gets into wheat, oats, and barley. So many grains are pumped full of this stuff. And they don't even do this necessarily just to help them grow through the season by killing the weeds and competitive plants around them. They're also sprayed with this stuff to help them during the drying process. I guess there's something about having this chemical inside of the grain that helps them dry out when it's time to create things like cereal or flour. So yeah, you're getting tons of it too if you're just eating regular grain products. And as you can see from the map, yes, it gets all throughout the environment. It gets all over everything. It's used everywhere. So let's go into an example of this. What's a really good example of this that isn't even a plant where you can get exposed to this? Well, how about beef tallow? Because if you think about it, it's getting sprayed all over the grass. It's getting sprayed in the nearby environment along with whatever else they're doing. And something like this, which is marketed as a health product, the Free Graze brand at Costco, grass-fed, grass-finished pure beef tallow. You can see on the label that they're saying, oh, it doesn't have this, it doesn't have that. Well, it doesn't say no glyphosate on there. And that's because cows eat glyphosate-laced grass because it gets sprayed in the environment, it gets sprayed in adjacent fields, or it gets sprayed directly on the grass. Who really knows what the fuck they're doing with this shit? And the cows eat that stuff. And if you don't know this about animals, a lot of toxins, a lot of drugs, anything that gets into the animal will often get stored in the fat of that animal. So what you might potentially be eating here is potentially a giant jar of poison because it's been concentrated through the metabolic processes of the cow and concentrated in their fat. And this isn't just speculation. I actually ate this stuff back in January, and after about a week of cooking with this tallow specifically, I started feeling sick as fuck. And it was the only thing that I added to my diet at the time, and it's the only thing that I removed from my diet, and I felt better, way better, after about a week. And so I sent them a very nasty fucking email talking about a lawsuit because I was so pissed that these motherfuckers are deceiving everybody with this really healthy, oh, look at this branding, Free Graze with a little heart on it, grass-fed, grass-finished. It's filled full of fucking poison. And then you go on their website and it's like, ingredients are not available for this product. It's just beef tallow, guys. It's right there on the front of the label. Bullshit, man. What are the cows eating? They don't even tell you where the farms are, where this tallow is derived from, because they know it's full of poison. They know if people go out to those farms and actually take a look for themselves, they'll see a fucking crop duster filled with glyphosate and Roundup, spraying the shit out of everything in the area. So yeah, take it from me, you need to start really looking at what you're buying, and you need to look back at the source, because you are potentially poisoning yourself with stuff like this that is branded to get your guard down just long enough for you to go home and consume this and pay them, and they get rich and you get sick. So don't buy this kind of shit. Do your research. And now let me explain to you why that's so important to do your research. What does this do to the body? Well, first of all, glyphosate is a known carcinogen. It is known to cause many forms of cancer, but the one that it most prominently causes is lymphoma. It's actually non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a pretty nasty form of cancer. So if you want some good old fucking cancer, go ahead and eat some Free Graze bullshit. But that's just the beginning. If you eat this stuff on a regular basis, you may experience one of the following: irritable bowel syndrome, constipation, indigestion, heartburn, colon tumors, colon cancer, and intestinal cysts. It's been linked to all of these things. And that's because it causes major dysfunction within the body. Because it's not only just an irritant, but it's also an endocrinological disruptor. It disrupts your hormones and blocks signals from getting where they need to be, which comes up in the next slide here where I talk about concentrated exposures. Because if you get direct concentrated exposure to chemicals like glyphosate and inorganic phosphates, it can irritate the shit out of your skin, your eyes will water up, it'll cause burning in your sinus cavity, it causes severe throat and lung irritation, and again, it disrupts your endocrine system, which is how your body sends chemical signals to every other part of your body. And if you don't know about the endocrine system of the human body, it is extremely important. It's just as important as your heart. Almost every single part of your body, including your bones and all of your organs, secrete some kind of hormone. It's a very complex system that, if not properly maintained and if not functioning properly for long periods of time, can absolutely lead to all kinds of problems, including cancer and numerous metabolic diseases. I myself am somebody who has suffered majorly from all kinds of metabolic dysfunction in the past, especially growing up. And I personally blame that on shit like this. They're putting this stuff in our food without us even knowing. You're just eating a normal diet. A diet that people in other places in the world eat, like the Italians. They've banned a lot of this shit. They actually don't even have the crops. I forgot to mention that. A lot of the crops that we eat now are genetically modified, but they're not just genetically modified to be, shelf stable or look really good or anything like that and catch your eye. They're also specifically genetically modified to be resistant or immune to glyphosate and other chemicals. So what Monsanto basically did back in like the 80s or the 70s or maybe even the 90s is they created this fucking chemical to be sprayed everywhere, and then they genetically modified their plants so that they would have the only plants that were capable of being immune or resistant to glyphosate. Because a lot of the natural forms of the foods that we eat, like tomatoes, potatoes, stuff like that, they will be killed by chemicals like this because they are normal plants with normal internal biological functions. But something is just completely off about this GMO shit. And a lot of those GMO plants, like the fruits and vegetables and stuff, are also extremely hard for you to digest. So not only are you taking a modified plant that your body did not evolve to digest, but you're also filling it with these fucking chemicals that irritate the shit out of your body and disrupt its hormone system. And so I'm going to end off this video by saying that you should refuse to eat this shit. You should not be eating anything with glyphosate in it. It is straight up poison. And it's insidious. You don't even know you're eating it. You just go about your daily life and you eat this or that and you start having all these problems with your stomach like I did growing up. You have pain, you have discomfort, you have indigestion, and it just doesn't seem right that the body is not working the way that it should with normal foods. Well, and it's because they're not normal. Fundamentally, they're not normal because they're GMO, but they're also not normal because they're filled with fucking poison. So I implore you to do your research and honestly, just find stores that are dedicated to healthy foods. They do exist out there. The store that I most oftenly frequent is called Natural Grocers, and they are absolutely committed to only curating a selection of foods that they have vetted for not having chemicals in them, for not being GMO, and whatever other bullshit that we don't even know about. They are constantly watching for that kind of thing, and they are making the conscious decision not to buy from those producers. So please, if you have like IBS or anything, if you've ever had any problem with digestion or food, or you're just worried about getting fucking cancer, like colon cancer or lymphoma or something like that, just stop. Start voting with your money. Start paying attention to every little aspect of your life, not just what you eat, but everything. And start refusing to give in to this fucking bullshit. The bullshit philosophy that we'll just put whatever we want in the food or we'll do whatever we want because we're rich assholes, and whatever consequences it has for the general public at large, we'll just take a 5% cut in the form of a lawsuit. One of these class action lawsuits where they barely get sued for any money at all compared to what they've made over the years in terms of profit. And we'll just keep doing that over and over again. No, we got to be proactive. We have to actually look at exactly what we're spending our money on. And when shit like this comes up, and when Trump decides to keep making this stuff instead of signing an executive order to find alternatives and start pumping money into, organic pesticides and herbicides, like, I don't know if you know this, but there are companies out there, I actually used to work for one, they use other insects as a form of pest control. You can literally buy pods filled with praying mantis. You can literally buy these pods that are filled with praying mantis, and you buy a pod and like 50 of these fucking little praying mantis come out and they start eating everything. They sell assassin bugs. It's actually pretty cool shit. And does that work for every situation? I don't know. I'm not a bug expert, but come on, like we can find more intelligent solutions than just spraying poison all over everything. And so that's where I'm going to wrap up this video. Thank you for watching as usual, and I will see you in the next one.